Copycat parties had swept the nation, but none were so extravagant as the trendsetters. Presumably founded by a pack of anonymous socialites, the parties had become a topic of voracious interest. Where would they be? What spectacle would follow? And most importantly, who was Cecelia Beaton? The name was a play on the illustrious Cecil Beaton, an icon in fashion photography and notorious member of the original Bright Young Things. The infamous Irreverent youths had overtaken London newspaper headlines through the late 1920s, for all the same reasons as their namesake. They were wild, rebellious, and glamorous, with exclusivity that was almost impossible to break into. Cecelia Beaton signed her name to any contracts and invoices for parties, paid in cash, and generally flummoxed everyone regarding her real identity, if she even was a she. No one knew, and none of the 50 or so core Bright Young Things would talk. The mystery of it ate the general populace alive, so they wondered, and watched, and salivated in unison at the sight of celebrities' Instagram posts from the parties, and stalked Twitter for any sliver of gossip they could inhale. 200 invitations went out for every party, and not one single attendee would risk their coveted spot by leaking any important details leading up to an event, just enough to whet the appetite of the public, amplifying the intrigue exponentially. As far as I knew, I was the first reporter to actually make it into one, and I intended to make the most of it. The steel door we stopped at was imposing, set under an unassuming tin-topped light in the brick wall, a rusty, bolted 10-ton affair with a metal slide at eye level. When Ash knocked to the beat of "Shave and a Haircut," the slide rasped open, and a pair of suspicious eyes glinted from the shadows. "Password," he growled. But Ash flashed that smile he flung around so easily, along with his invitation. The tattler. The slide slammed shut, and with a creaky grind, the door slid open. I wasn't a small guy, 6'4" with no shoes on, my shoulders broad enough to intimidate most anybody into submission. But the man behind that door wasn't so much a man as he was a rhino, with a jaw like a brick and a neck like a tree trunk. He could have pounded us into the ground like a stake with nothing more than a hammer swing to the skull. But instead, he stepped out of the way and let us pass, watching us as he rolled the door back in place and lowered a metal arm dense enough to stop a battering ram. They don't fuck around about security, do they? I asked, glancing once more over my shoulder. Don't want the rabble getting in, do we? Anything but that, I answered flatly, as we trotted down a set of narrow stairs as black as pitch. The stairwell dumped us into a long, dimly lit hallway, and at the end was a doorway, a portal to decadence, a glittering window to music and laughter, gold and velvet, luxury incarnate. In a rare act of nerves, Ash grabbed his Homburg hat by the indentations, lifting it just high enough to run his free hand through sandy blonde hair. Where he wore a double-breasted three-piece suit, complete with pocket square and pocket watch, I'd decided on the 20s working man. Shirt sleeves cuffed to my elbows, no tie, slacks with a higher waist than I preferred, for authenticity, suspenders, and a tweed newsboy cap. Never was one for suits. Ash, however, had been born in Armani, with a silver spoon in his mouth and a G&T in his hand, just like almost everyone on the other side of that threshold. Though I had plenty of rich friends, and I mean filthy rich old money friends, their extravagance always made me uncomfortable. Not for the underscoring of what I didn't have, but for the sheer lack of normalcy, the flippancy at which they'd spend 20 grand in a night, while there were so many who had nothing. That sort of grandeur was so out of touch it bordered disrespect. But that was what it was, and happened to be exactly why I was here, for a fairy tale of riches no commoner would ever see. I tried to put away my disapproving frown, lifting my chin and straightening my spine. My lungs expanded with a fortifying breath, and we stepped through the doorway.